So welcome to this strategic enrollment session. We're going to talk about utilizing the data dashboards. And so our speakers today are Jeremy Gibbons from Cape Fear Community College and Elizabeth Stoddard from our own system office. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. If you have any difficulty with the PowerPoint, I do have a copy, but you've got it all under control. So I'm just here in the background to help if needed.
Thank you, Jennifer. Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Stoddard. I'm the Director of Analytics and Reporting here at the System Office, and I'm here with Jeremy Gibbons from Cape Fear Community College, the Dean of Enrollment Services. And we are happy to be here this morning talking to you about enrollment management and how you can utilize some tools that we make available here at the System Office in our data dashboards, and also some really cool things that Jeremy and his team are doing at Cape Fear to look at student enrollment, retention, recruiting, and enrollment management. So I'm going to start off by looking a little bit at our data dashboards, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy. And I just have a couple of slides here, but I'm actually going to quickly move into some live demonstrations of the dashboards. Hold on, let's try. Okay, this is just a screenshot of our NC Community College's homepage. The dashboards are accessible on every page of our website. You'll see highlighted in red up here this little dashboards icon. So you can click that from any page and get to our dashboard homepage here. Our dashboards are organized by theme, and you can click into any of these themes and explore the dashboards that are underneath. The link is also up here at the top. So I just clicked that link, and now I'm on our actual website. For this presentation, I'm going to focus on an enrollment dashboard. I'm going to be looking here at curriculum headcount enrollment. So I just clicked in here to the student program and course enrollment theme, and I'm going to click here, curriculum headcount, and this is going to open our curriculum headcount dashboard. And let's see if I can make it a little bit bigger. So before I get into this, I'm just going to kind of level set, I guess, and talk about how our dashboards, all of the dashboards that my team creates and manages and makes available on this website, it's all looking at data that we receive from you all, from the colleges, at the end, in most cases at the end of each semester. So particularly when we're looking at enrollment or FTE, we get these data sets from all of our colleges in the CCSR, CE Reg, and ICR flat files that you all send us after the semester is over. So our dashboards here they're very good for looking at kind of what's happened, and that's what I'll be showing you today and kind of talking through. You know, you can see what happened last semester and trends as well, historical trends, but they're not as good for thinking about what's happening in the current semester. And so that's where Jeremy, I think, will really be able to show you some great things that, as I said, that they're doing at Cape Fear locally that are helping to move that needle. But coming back here to the dashboards, we're on the kind of the landing page of the curriculum headcount enrollment dashboard. The first thing I'm going to do here is go to my filters. So on any of our dashboards, you'll see filters on the right-hand side of the page here. You can select your college. So I'm actually going to select Cape Fear here from this list. One kind of tip as you're going through the dashboards is that when you're looking at these filters, any filter that's in a red font here, like we're seeing for select college, select time frame, any filter in a red font will carry through to the rest of the pages of the dashboard. So I just selected Cape Fear here. And then you'll see as I kind of go through to these other pages, we'll still be looking at Cape Fear on every page that has a college filter on it. We'll be looking at Cape Fear. Another thing that we can look at for this dashboard in particular is we can choose whether we want to look at our curriculum enrollment across all students, which is selected here at the top, or if we want to just look at dually enrolled high school students. So if I click that, two things are going to happen. One is that the graph on the bottom is going to change a little bit to highlight the share of the student population that is dually enrolled. So that's this yellow at the bottom. And we can see, looking at it, that we've seen, or Cape Fear had seen an increase in their dual enrollment population, in the share of their dual enrollment population, actually both the share and the raw numbers from fall 14 to fall 24. So in fall 14, it was about 5% of their total student enrollment. In fall 24, it's about 25%, 27% of their overall student enrollment. I said that two things were going to happen when I selected this filter. In addition to the graph changing, the other thing is that this selection will carry through to the rest of the pages of the dashboard. And you'll note that, or you can note that here in the red font on this little paragraph. I could also filter to look at not dually enrolled students. And again, if I make this selection right here, that selection will carry through to the other pages of the dashboard, which means that when we're looking on all these other pages at student enrollment, we will be focusing on curriculum enrollment that is not dually enrolled students. We'll be leaving the dually enrolled students out of the picture. But you can also see, just looking at the graph here, that there at Cape Fear, the over this 10 or 11 year period, there's been a decrease in the number of dually enrolled students. In fall 14, 95% of their students were non-dually enrolled, about 8,700. In fall 24, it's about 75%, 7,000. But it's still, it's still 75% of their student population is not dually enrolled. So it's still a good chunk of their student enrollment. And I think Jeremy is going to talk a little bit more about that during his part of the presentation. So I'm going to keep these filters like they are, so that we are looking at not dually enrolled students at Cape Fear, and then we're looking across fall terms. We could also look across spring terms or summer terms if we chose to, but for right now, I'm just going to keep it so we're looking at fall terms. The next page of this dashboard just shows, it's another kind of overtime view. The addition here is that in addition to just looking at Cape Fear enrollment, we're also looking, we're comparing that to NCCCS overall statewide enrollment. If we wanted to, we could select a different college from the list here. So you can compare your college to a peer college, or you can compare your college to statewide. And we can also, a cool thing I like to do here is show graph by filter. Right now we have total CU enrollment selected, so we're just looking at trends and our total non-dually enrolled curriculum enrollment. But I can switch that to program type, and so now the data is broken out by arts and sciences enrollment in the orange, CTE enrollment in this kind of tealish color, and then special programs in the pink, And so what this is telling me kind of at a glance is that, again, thinking just about my not dually enrolled population, over these 6 fall terms, we're seeing less of a share of our non-dually enrolled students going into an arts and sciences program and more going into CTE. So back in fall 19, about 60% of enrollment was arts and sciences, a little under 40% was CTE. And now in the most recent fall term, it's actually 50% is arts and sciences, and 44% is CTE. So again, with these dashboards, they're really good at showing you what has happened, trends, history, what's been happening recently, but of course you have to wait till after the semester is over to be able to see any of these trends. I'm going to skip over the next few pages of this, but these pages just disaggregate your enrollment by different student demographics, characteristics, and academic characteristics and program. But I'm going to go into the few tabs here at the end. So this residence tab, this one shows us where our enrolled students are coming from at the state level, the county level, and the zip code level. And again, we're only thinking about our not dually enrolled students here. So we can see Cape Fear gets students, or in fall 24, had students from kind of all over the country, and Hawaii, and some from out of country as well. We can look at it at the county level, and we can see these highlighted areas, that's the service area for Cape Fear, but we can see they are getting students from all over the state as well. We can look at this we can look at the county level enrollment kind of over time. So each of these lines is represents the number of enrolled students, non-dually enrolled students, coming from a county. So like this yellow line at the top, these represent students from New Hanover, which is one of the counties in Cape Fear's service area. So we can see here that between fall 19 and fall 22, there's actually been a decrease in student enrollment of students coming from New Hanover County. But we did see kind of an increase between fall 22 and fall 23, and a little bit of a decrease between fall 23 and fall 24. These other lines at the bottom represent different counties. This is just telling us that there were fewer students enrolled from all of these counties. The blue line represents like all other in-state counties that aren't that don't have enough enrollment to warrant, or to get their own line on this graph. Only the 5 biggest or the 5 counties with the most enrollment are shown on the graph by default, but you can actually change this little slider here to show like your 6 counties with the highest enrollment, or 7. I think it goes up to your top 10 counties. And then you can do the same thing by zip code. I won't go into all of these, but just know you can kind of see that same view here, telling you which zip codes your students are coming from, and that zip code analysis over time as well. The next tab of the dashboard is this compare tab. This one is just going to tell you, it's going to give you kind of a statewide look here, and telling you on the top, looking at one semester, I have fall 24 selected, but you can go back to any semester going back to 2017, showing you the enrollment at each college, and you can sort the graph in different ways. But if I just sort it by total enrollment, this will show us which colleges had the highest enrollment of non-dually enrolled students down to the lowest enrollment of non-dually enrolled students. A cool thing here is that you can, on this bottom part of the graph, you can see where your selected college falls in the ranking across all these fall terms. So in between fall 19 and fall 24, Cape Fear was, number 5 or number 6 statewide in terms of their total enrollment of curriculum non-dually enrolled students. So that's what this is telling us. This next view, I really like. I really like to show this view and to play with this view. This one is going to tell us we can pick a county from this map at the top, and it tells us of all of the students who go to a community college who reside in that county, which colleges are they going to? So still thinking about Cape Fear here. If I let's select Pender County, which is one of their service area counties. We can see that there were, in fall 24, there were 1,042 total community college students who lived in Pender County. About 83% of them went to Cape Fear, but that means about 17% of them did not go to Cape Fear. So James Brent had about 4%, Coastal Carolina 3%, Wake Tech got 2%, and then so on. You can hover over all of these boxes to see where else the students went. So you can do that for any county. New Hanover, Cape Fear had about 91% of the students residing in New Hanover, but a handful of them went to Brunswick and then Wake Tech again. You can filter this down by the program type as well. So if we just wanted to see of all of the arts and sciences students who, all of the community college students who were enrolled in an arts and sciences program who reside in New Hanover County, 94% of them ended up going to Cape Fear. If we go back to Pender County and looking at those same parameters, so non-dually enrolled community college students enrolled in arts and sciences who live in Pender County, about 86% of them went to Cape Fear. You can also show this view over time. So here you do have to select your counties again. But if I select Pender County and then let's go back to arts and sciences here. So this kind of aligns with what we were seeing on an earlier page of a decreasing share of enrollment in arts and sciences at Cape Fear. This is telling us that over these 6 fall terms here, of all of the community college students enrolled in arts and sciences who live in Pender County, fewer of them, in fall 19, about 90% of them were going to Cape Fear, and in fall 24, about 86% of them were going to Cape Fear. I'm getting those numbers from the tooltip, by the way, that's popping up on the screen here. The other lines on the graph that are all kind of at the bottom down here, those are showing the other colleges that these students went to. And again, you can do that same analysis by zip code, and you can show the zip code over time view as well. And then this view is, I'm gonna end with this, but this shows you the change in enrollment over 2 time periods that you can select. We only have fall terms available to select, so we can go back to fall 17 and up to fall 24. But each of these areas on the map here is a college service area. And let's change this to fall 19, so right before the pandemic. So right now we're looking at the change in enrollment for still looking at non-dually enrolled students, the change in enrollment statewide. So we can see, looking across all colleges in CCCS total, there was about a 3% decrease in non-dually enrolled student enrollment between fall 19 and fall 24. But looking at the graph, you can see there is a lot of variety, a lot of variability when you're looking college by college. So Cape Fear here actually had a 2% increase in their non-dually enrolled student enrollment between these 2 periods. You can filter this down to the program type, or you can, or I should say, and you can come over to each of these little tabs here to kind of do a deeper dive into that percent change into the program area. So like you can filter by this specific arts and sciences program area, the specific CTE program area, and so forth. I'm going to end on the last page of the dashboard, which is metric details. What I always like to tell people here is that many of our dashboards, all of our enrollment dashboards, offer these data downloads. You can always find these on the metric details tab of the dashboard, and you can click this. It'll open as an Excel document, and it'll give you the aggregated data that's used to feed this dashboard in Excel format. And then so you can kind of, if there's more analysis that you want to do that's not available on the dashboard, these data downloads are a good way to do that. And yes, thank you, Jennifer. Downloading the document, the data download here allows you to save it and sort it as needed. All right, so I'm going to, Jeremy, do you want me to drive your PowerPoint for you, or do you want to share yourself? I'm gonna turn it over to Jeremy now so he can talk about what they're doing locally.
Thanks, Elizabeth. If you've got it already going on the slide deck, that's fine if you want to drive.
Yep. All right, and I'm still here. I'm watching the chat. So if anyone does have any questions or anything about the dashboards, feel free to put it in the chat and I'll get it answered.
All right, good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Jeremy Gibbons. I'm looking forward to spending some time with you today to talk about kind of how do you take the bigger picture dashboard approach and then turn it into some daily actions. Monty had asked me if I could share some examples of kind of within a semester, what are some things that we're doing locally at the college to kind of continue to move the needle outside of strategic planning. We can go to the next slide, Elizabeth. So just to set the stage a little bit, everyone probably in the room today is either actively using a strategic enrollment management plan or is in process of building one. I know over the last year or two, we've all been working collectively to work on these plans, and many of us participated in some of the RNL workshops. And so that's really kind of the umbrella plan outside of the college's strategic plan. And then many of us have maybe annual recruitment and admissions plans. And those plans probably have strategies and goals and action plans to kind of reach those goals, as well as retention and student success plans. And these things are all important. And across all of these plans, many of us are using a variety of technology tools, including our CRMs, to help us work more efficiently, build strong communication plans, use dashboards for planning internally and things like that, as well as all the new AI tools that we're all executing. And again, these things are all equally as important. And they all should include goals that's based on research, including using these dashboards that Elizabeth did an excellent job showcasing today. How you're going to execute your plans, and then how you're going to review and create kind of feedback and close the loop on your plans. But what I want to focus on is something that's just as important. So we can go to the next slide, which is looking for opportunities on your day-to-day and week-to-week. So what are some things that you can do to move the needle with your enrollment on a daily basis? You know, I kind of think of different days of the week. I try to carve out small pockets of time to laser focus on certain things. And so every morning, one of the first things I'm doing in a digital dashboard environment and old school whiteboard right behind me that you can't see right now, I've got charts for what's our daily reach we have to get to in terms of number of registered students for a specific term. What did we accomplish yesterday? And what can we do today to continue moving that needle? So very targeted, looking at some of the details. And then based on that, putting some real-time actions in place. And so we can go to the next slide. And so why are we doing all of this, right? I wanted to just share a quote quickly. So I just wanted to reach out and thank you. You may not remember us, but we worked together to get my daughter into interior design school. We advocated and you listened. She graduated today, and I thought of you and your involvement. Again, I wanted to send a quick thank you note. So as we're thinking about the dashboards and we're thinking about strategic plans and then daily plans and work, 2 years ago, I identified something in a daily review that I'm going to share as an example that the other day came back to me in a way I didn't expect from the parents of one of our students who just graduated. So what we did that day reflected and made a change for that student. And so that's a win, right? We can go to the next slide. So hopefully everyone has a good process in place for how you're managing your inquiries to your applicants, your converted admits, your enrolled, your retain, re-enroll, and complete or success at the end. And this has kind of that standard typical stream or enrollment funnel. At Cape Fear, over the last semester or so, we have launched the One College model. And so we're also building out dashboards that are not just looking at applicants, but also looking at all of our short-term training programs as well, since they're not filling out the standard application. You want to make sure you're understanding your sources and your yield rates. You know, so how do those yield rates impact your goals? So right now, kind of in real time, our summer goal was to be up 5% in headcount for the term that just started. And historically, the percent of our applicants that are converting to registered students is around plus or minus 50% when you look at all of our students. It's much higher when you look at our specific to CCP students, which is probably true for many of us on the call today. That 50% for the general yield is in line with the average community college yield across the country. But of course, we all want to move that needle, right? Students have done so much just to get to that point in our process. And so our goal right now is to try to increase our yield from applicant to enrolled by 10 to 15%. And so everything from the strategic plan all the way down to our daily work, we're trying to help that be one piece of our needle. We can go to the next slide. So who on your campus is doing the daily temperature check? Just to get some involvement here, can I get some type of a reaction from you if you're doing a daily temperature check on your enrollment? Thumbs up, smiley face, put something in the chat. Hopefully I have 111 reactions. So let's talk about some things that we're all looking at. Look at that, that's great. So yes, we're looking at dashboards and funnel management. We're looking at program trends and demographic trends and different times of the year within the cycle, whether it's, you know, are we 6 or 9 months out from a term starting, or are we 1 month out from a term starting? Where are we with add drop activity, payment, you know, students who have paid, things like that. But we need to adjust all of these kind of strategies in real time. We can go to the next slide. So what are your term goals? Excuse me. What are your target dates? weekly goals, and daily goals and actions. And so some things that we align with our target dates are payment due dates. So where do we want to be in terms of numbers before payment is due for classes? And we want to benchmark against that. So if last summer when payment was due, if the certain number of students registered had paid, we're working to increase the yield on that and improve the number of students who are paid. Of course, a lot of work goes in behind the scenes to find ways to help students either access financial aid or access scholarships, payment plan, etc. Another key date for us is deregistration. We call it purge. I call it deregistration. Haven't been able to make that change yet, but the purge on campus for classes that are being dropped for non-payment. And again, benchmarking against that as a separate goal. Because all these goals add up. These individual pieces can all make a difference if we can see a little bit of a growth in each area. Of course, day one of the semester and during the add drop period, but the enrollment verification or students who need to come to an in-person class to be reported for attendance. Recently, we've really tried to ramp up that outreach. And for example, for the summer semester, many of you may use IntelliBoard. If you have Canvas and you're not using IntelliBoard, that might be something to look at. We were able to use IntelliBoard to tell us which students within Canvas have not done an enrollment verification daily leading up to the census date. And then we had targeted communication to those students to help complete that sooner for us. But also, right at the end, we launched a phone campaign. And that was division-wide, where everyone jumped in and helped make sure that students knew if they hadn't done it, well, making sure they know how to access their class in Canvas and making sure they understand what is the enrollment verification to get that completed so they can move forward and not be dropped for not attending. Again, know those census date goals and don't forget about your mini sessions. We all have that finish line of the term starting, but it really is a continued process. And so for us, we don't typically take kind of the stamp of what is kind of our historical enrollment number look like until at least after for summer, our 8-week session starts next week. So that's when we'll kind of see where are we at that point based on where we were this time last year. Daily, I'm looking at programs that have high demand and low demand. So if we have a program that's looking like it's going to be over-enrolled, are there opportunities to be able to meet that demand? And if a program's looking like it's going to be maybe not meeting the benchmark, what can we do daily to try to move that needle? We can go to the next slide. So we're going to share some specific examples for some quick wins. So that quote that I shared with you is one example. And this is a program level example. And this is a program that had high demand. Historically, our interior design program had a wait list, and some students were unfortunately having to wait up to 2 years to get into the program. And so we were able to strategically work with that program and our leadership across the college to launch an evening interior design option, which over time has now doubled the size of that program. We can now meet the student demand. But that student quote, that example was from someone who was going to be on a 2-year wait list and then found out we had launched that evening program and then circled back to me unsolicited 2 years later saying that they recognized that we had worked hard to try to make that change. And so I think that's an example of a program. Instead of saying that program's full, it's we have over demand, we're kind of stuck, we were able to find solutions to help the students. And there were some challenges to work through that, right? Resources and collaboration across the board. But we were able to get the right people at the table to help make decisions and get the resources. And then reflecting on that, those individuals came back, afterwards and are also very, very happy because their program has doubled, right? Another example, second example here is a class-specific example. So like many of you, one population of students we serve are our visiting students or our guest students. And as our academic advisors are working with our guest or visiting students, they're keeping track of what class or classes that student may want to take. And so we're not just looking at what's on our schedule and is the class full and can we wait list, or when does the class run again in the future. We're also collecting information from those students on, well, what class or classes are you looking for? Because we may not have it on the schedule. And one example from this summer is historically we've never run a specific physics course over the summer. But we noticed a trend where 5 or 6 students had shared with our advising center that they were looking for that class. And because we were collecting that information, we were able to use that, find an instructor, and get that class added for one of our 8-week sections starting next week. And we only have, as of last night, we had 1 seat left in the class. Well, that's going to be 30 students that we may not have had at the college if we hadn't been able to add that class. But we wouldn't have known that if we weren't collecting that data point and could make a quick decision. Our truck driver training program is one of our short-term training programs. And again, this example is to really help you think about understand your program specific needs and the students that may be in that program. So for this program, we have lots of information on the website and lots of marketing, and we have lots of emails and texts that go out. But what we still find with this program that moves the needle the most is personalized phone calls. The students who are looking at this program, they are really appreciative of the calls. We're able to help guide them through the process. And historically, a lot of these classes would fill, but they'll fill right before they start. And so we've been able to kind of back that up, and we're working to try to make sure students are getting everything in line much faster by just changing our approach to that program. So it's not one size fits all. Course caps. I know many of us look at, especially if it's online versus in person and things like that, of course, but specifically with course caps in online, we've worked collaboratively with our academic affairs colleagues to, where appropriate, increase the caps if we can. Some of our classes, the caps were a little bit lower. And also, when we get to census, we've had discussions recently about if we are over the cap, then rather than turn the student away, can we work to potentially provide that instructor some type of a stipend to take on that extra work, but also still be able to serve the student. And what we're finding is that, generally by the time we're at census, we hopefully have a full class, as opposed to maybe we have a little bit of an under-enrolled class because it had been full, but we didn't overbook. So I'm not sure if other folks are considering kind of this overbooking process, but I'd love to hear what's working well for folks. And we still do a lot of phone calls, and we'll continue to do that until students don't pick up. We still find that students are extremely thankful for phone calls and using our technology to help us identify who to call, but still having folks reach out via phone. And of course, we're reaching out to students who have applied and are incomplete, accepted, not enrolled, students who have balances, that EV completion, like I mentioned. But it's not just a few team members in our area. We really do division-wide and college-wide phone campaigns. But we have to make sure folks are prepared. So we have scripts and resources to share with the folks making the calls, and we kind of set deadlines across the board to try to reach some of these goals. So audience, if you can maybe put in the chat, what are some, briefly, what are some quick wins that you've seen on your campus just to share with your colleagues? Folks might copy and paste for their notes. What are some things that you're doing on kind of the daily things that you have found to move that needle that maybe weren't part of a plan? We'll give everybody a minute if they want to potentially throw some comments in. I'll share 2 other examples. I'm sure many of you are using Student Tracker, but if you're not using Student Tracker with the National Student Clearinghouse, we run all of our applications through Student Tracker if they did not enroll at Cape Fear, so we understand their college decisions. Where are they going? Is it one of our sister schools across the state? Is it one of the UNC schools? Is it a private school? Is it an out-of-state school? Are they not attending college? And if they're not, then we get them back into the funnel to try to re-engage in some way moving forward. And we also don't forget to put folks through Student Tracker outside of just your applicant pool. We also put like our adult high school graduates through Student Tracker as well, and things like that. We've got some examples coming in the chat. Kimberly sharing that they reach out personally to students who haven't graduated and didn't register for the next term. That's a great idea, keeping them motivated. we can go to the next slide, and then if some comments come in, we can come back to those. So I wanted to share some things that I'm doing on a daily basis again, that I have found helpful. So I'm looking for students who are stuck in the funnel, whether that's a student who has applied and maybe something hasn't been attached to their record so they can keep moving correctly, or for those of us who are in colleague on a daily basis. We all know that sometimes students get stuck in that AD status and can't move forward, right? So we have an informer report that identifies those students, but I'm just checking to make sure these reports are running, that folks have cleaned up these records, and so that students don't get stuck somewhere in our process. And I also might take a glance at a lot of our very busy incoming email accounts and just make sure there's not a student that is kind of getting lost in confusion of a conversation or things like that. So there's kind of a menu of things that I'm checking to kind of, try to find stuck students, which is not only going to help the student, but also going to help our team members who are just bombarded with information coming at them with phone calls and emails and helping students. And so if I can also help pull some of the students away from some of that may need that extra level of support, we can do that really quickly. And daily, I'm looking for gaps. And so, we do that in a lot of different ways, but it may be gaps around our service areas. So if we're backed up in one area, but another area might not be, how can we use that kind of that cross communication daily to help close those gaps? We'll do targeted you ask, we act campaigns. So what I mean by that is we may, during certain times of kind of the campaign, we may use, say, our CRM to push out messaging that tries to engage the student to then come back at us with questions. This is a different example of finding students who might be stuck, but it might be that they just needed kind of a nudge to start to re-engage with us. And then based on that, we need to quickly get back to them and help them solve wherever it is that they might be stuck in the process. And I think we find a lot of students that way. And you try to use that information to change things, right? If there was some confusing language on your website or in information that we sent out to the student, when we kind of scrub all of our messaging. We're constantly running sessions. One of them we call a basics session and the other a career discovery night. So the basics session are kind of your equivalent to a one-stop enrollment. We have them leading up to the start sessions, but we start with the basics. We do a 20-minute basics presentation on who we are, what we offer, all the different front doors at the college, and then based on which front door might be the best fit for you, what are the enrollment steps for that? Maybe that's GED, maybe that's one of our degree programs. And then after the basic session, we launch into a hands-on opportunity and workshop where, depending on what that front door might be, then we can help them actually engage and get things completed. If they don't know which front door, then we can use that opportunity to have them sit down with maybe a career counselor that evening to try to make a plan for which front door might be the best opportunity for them at the college. Waitlist management, we've had huge success with that lately, where we're monitoring the waitlist daily. And we've recently launched an enrollment operations center. And we have some team members there that are working daily to look at our waitlists and manage kind of proactively. If a class gets to, say, 80%, what are we doing now to get another section opened? Do we have instructors available who can teach the section? And if we don't, we're looping in not only the department, but also human resources right away to begin identifying instructors. And so that we don't delay, we'll open up sections with a TBA instructor to keep that registration moving for students, so we don't have a bottleneck. And then many of you know that in self-service, you can plan a class, put it in your cart, but you cannot register. And many times students may not realize they haven't actually hit that register button. And I had some feedback a few semesters ago that, I think we could improve on that. And so working with some of our amazing colleagues in IT who are much better at Informer than I am, we now have a really good Informer report that pulls students who have planned classes and not registered. And we're actively pulling those lists through for communication channels, but we're monitoring that almost on a daily basis. Just for the summer semester alone, we were able to move over 800 students from planned not registered. And many of them are extremely thankful that they didn't realize they hadn't registered, or maybe they just needed some help to relook at their schedule and their plan. So if anyone does not have a report that can pull that, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. I'm happy to share a screenshot of our report or connect you with what we're doing. We can go to the next slide. So team huddle. Whenever I can, I'll pull a 15-minute team huddle, and I'll try to focus on two things. What stopped a student from enrolling yesterday, and what can we do today to fix it? And that's often where we can find some of these gaps to help move the needle on a daily basis. But I hope that's helping build a culture of responsiveness here. And we may not ask the question that directly, but taking that temperature check on a daily basis, because everything that we do is going to help move the needle. We can go to the next slide. And so looking at some of these examples right now, these aren't final numbers, we all know, but for summer, our headcount is up 17%. Our goal was 5%. Right now for fall, we're trending 9%, and that's been holding pretty steady. And so we're going to be working to try to move that needle a few more percentage points here over the month of June. That interior design and that physics class example, well, those were enough students each together to become 1% of a head count. And so, using those two examples, our strategic plan may have a goal of 5%, but some of these quick wins and just looking at some things on a daily basis, well, it all adds up. And can become something that's kind of moving the needle in a way that you hadn't planned for. So I think this is the last slide. We can go to the next slide. Okay, this might be the last slide. So I'm looking forward to hearing your questions and feedback today, and I hope that you found some helpful tips and tricks along the way. So I think Elizabeth and I would be happy to open up for questions, comments, idea generation.
Do we have any questions or thoughts? You can unmute if you like, or you can feel free to put it in the chat, whatever's most comfortable for you. What are, okay, so Kimberly is asking for a screenshot of your Informer report, and she provided her email. I'm curious, what are your pain points right now? And a request for Jeremy for your copy of your presentation for the basic sessions. No pain points, y'all got it mastered. That's great. There we go. Okay, I knew there was some thoughts being churned out there. So Darcy's saying that they reach out to students with phone calls and text and email. Great question. What is your process for creating phone numbers? I was always in that struggle as an advisor, because you would get wrong numbers or disconnected numbers. They have a high failure rate. And some of their students are struggling with digital access. So Jeremy, is there any strategy in particular that y'all are using to kind of mitigate that issue?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think start engaging, by email as a channel. But the other thing is, what else do you have access to, right? So did the student provide emergency contact on their application? Have you tried that angle just to see if there's a way that you can connect with the student in a different way? Have you checked things like their transcripts? Sometimes the high school transcripts, may be outdated depending on when the student was in school, but, try to scrub your record to see if you can find other ways to make a contact with someone. And I think the other piece is too, you can probably try to see if that student, like maybe, like for example, we use a visa. And check your internal notes, because I have found students sometimes where it's like someone put a note in that said, this is the best number for the student, but somehow it didn't make it to the record. And so hopefully those are some helpful ideas.
That's a good point, because a lot of times, you thought you were diligent and documenting that and watermark, and then you realize, oh, well, but it wasn't updated where everyone else can access. That's a good point. Lots of requests for copies of your work, Jeremy, like your presentations and your informal reports. So all of those are in the chat. So maybe it could be those are just sent to Monty, and then everybody can like have some screenshots. Make the best use of that. We've got a couple more minutes. Are there any other requests or comments?
How about from the dashboards, perspective of the presentation today? Any thoughts or feedback from that? Because I think for me, we definitely use the dashboards and then try to use those to help us inform the daily and strategic planning. But I would love to hear more how other colleges are using the dashboards as well, or maybe if you have any gaps in the dashboards that you would like to see that might help Elizabeth and her team too.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll also note with all the dashboards that I showed today, those are all public facing and do not contain student level data, but we do have a separate kind of portal for another set of dashboards that does contain the student level data. So it's called our NCCCS Power BI portal. All of the data coordinators at each college have access to these Power BI portal dashboards, and then others at the colleges do as well. Access is handled through your data coordinator, but that portal is kind of where we give you back the data that you give us. So like your enrollment data, your ICR, and student level, course level data. That's all that we are reporting off of. That's all available to you back in our Power BI dashboards.
So there's a question to Jeremy about how large our enrollment department team is to help you achieve these goals.
Okay, sure. So we've been going through some reorganization, which is coming, I think, to kind of a closure. We're kind of bringing some of the teams together. So my supervisor, our Vice President of Student Services, Sabrina Terry, at the division level, and our division has some offices in it that may not be the case at some of your colleges, but Student Services has some offices, like including, for example, the library, tutoring services, as well as our compliance team, which is part of our registrar's office now. So as a division, I think we're around 115 team members within enrollment services. So our division is broken into kind of 3 areas. Within the enrollment services area, we're at, I think, 32 team members right now. 10 of them are focused on what I would call the front door. So we have 3 new student navigators that are helping essentially from I've applied forward, getting students through the front door all the way to the baton handoff for an academic advisor. We have 2 recruiters that are focused external and then on campus tours and some of these events. And then we have our front door information specialists across multiple locations. We have 5 information specialists. And so, that team is really doing a lot of the heavy lifting of what I talked about today. So I would say it's kind of a core group of 10 that's still being formed right now. We have a couple of vacancies at the moment, but I think as a division and as a college, we are all committed to this work, and it's about open communication and collaboration and getting the right folks working on stuff across the board.
Agreed. And I want to follow up on Elizabeth as far as the dashboards too. They can be very intimidating because it's so much information. So I have found the easiest way is just to sort of dive in and play with them a little bit, go back and forth on the tabs, compare different colleges, and really just kind of dig into them. Just set aside time that this is how I'm going to figure this out. And that really helped me to see, okay, this is where I can access this in particular. And they're really amazing, but they can be overwhelming. So I think it's just start with one and play with it, and then that kind of expand your knowledge to all the other ones. So Brian sorry, go ahead, Elizabeth.
I was going to say, thank you for that. And also, like, me and anyone on my team that's familiar with the dashboards would always be happy to do some PD with anyone who wants to kind of get some tips and tricks and best practices for diving in. And I saw Brian Gann's question in the chat too, knowing that our public dashboards are lagging indicators. He's asking, have we thought about ways to collect some leading indicators? And yes, we are working on some dashboards right now that that wouldn't be like from our official data that we get at the end of every semester, but from a different data source collection that we have that comes in on a daily basis to the system office. And we're putting together some views that look at daily enrollment and daily FTE separated out by academic level. My team is working on these. We hope to be able to make something available in the next month or so. These likely would not, or they definitely will not be public facing. They'll be in our access controlled environment that I mentioned before, Power BI, but they will be good for kind of showing on a daily basis what your enrollment is looking like, what your FTE is looking like, and comparing that to the same, like, to your enrollment in FTE a year before. So like right now it's May 28th. So we'd be able to see, this is my, summer 25 enrollment. This is my number of students and my FTE for summer 25 on May 28th. But I can also compare that to what that looks like on May 28th, 2024 for summer 24 enrollment. So we're working through some, refinements right now, but we do expect to have those available in the next few weeks. Thank you for that question. I see another question. Do we have any dashboard that captures the applications data as well? That is not data that we get at the system office. We have enrollment data after they've registered, but we unfortunately do not have application data. So it's kind of an ongoing conversation. And, with the upcoming move to Banner, we might be able to have that source of information. But right now we don't have any application data, unfortunately.
I agree. Application data would be nice. And I don't know if that's something that we can, if your application is CFNC, if that's something that we can grab. But that's definitely a good question for Monty when he returns to the office to see we like to use the leaky pipeline, right? And just seeing from those that apply but didn't follow through, like how many are you losing in that particular area? So I agree. That would be good information to have. So we only have 1 minute left. So I was going to wrap us up. Thank you both, Elizabeth and Jeremy, for providing your information. I'm going to send all of this information, including the recording, to Monty, and then he will send it out to you guys by the end of the week. But I really appreciate it. Any follow-up questions you can ask him. The CFNC one will be a really good one to ask. And Jeremy, if you'll just send your content to Monty and he can just gather all in one email and send it out to everyone so nobody has missed, that would be great. Okay. All right. Thank you.